Ladies and gentlemen, the amateur sommelier. You will notice that as I'm sitting down to dinner and about to eat on the eve before Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas to all of you, what I have noticed is that we have not had the talk. What is the talk? The talk is about Christmas wine and what should you bring to parents, in-laws, large gatherings. What are we doing here? Now, there's nothing wrong with the social wines, the aperitifs, if you will. Those kind of get you started. That starts the conversations going, the flowing of the wine for those who are able to, with their age, if you will. And those are great and all, but most people, when they think about the Christmas, the holiday wines, they think about the dinner wines. And I apologize that I have not had this conversation, because it dawned on me last night that we had not talked at all about how to choose Christmas wines. And as much as I wanted to jump out of my bed at 9 o'clock at night and try to record, I really wanted to do it in a more kind of wine and dine moment, as you see my dinner here. I myself, on the eve before Christmas Eve, am having a Campo Viejo Rioja, a 2013 Grand Reserva. Now, that sounds very fancy. That sounds very, I'm trying to say, polished. It sounds very impressive to someone who doesn't know too much about wine. Now, as I can tell you, as I've had a few sips, and I use some of it for my cooking in the steak, it's very rustic, it's very earthy, there's very high tannin, there's very low fruit. Now then, as there's a bit of oak butteriness to it, actually, almost like a Chardonnay on the nose. And I drink. It's very high tannin, it's very drying. It's low acidity. Maybe medium. Low medium. I would not bring this bottle to people who are not used to drinking red wine. It's a very fancy bottle. I don't remember how much I paid for it. I paid for it today, actually. But I would go with people who are newer to wine. I go to this end here. We go to something like a Meritage. It's a blend of red wine. This one from Jefferson Vineyards has, let's see, where is that? There we go. It has Petit Verdot, it has Merlot, it has Malbec. These are medium wines as opposed to heaviness. It's not like a Cabernet. It's kind of on the lighter end of the reds, but it's not as light as a Pinot Noir. It's somewhere in the middle. This is what I would go to somebody who's kind of the newer end of wine. If you do want to go with a heavier wine like a Campo Viejo, might I suggest, if you were in the Atlanta area, and go to Chateau Elan, the Roldac, or one of their other red wines. They're absolutely fantastic. They are very going to be useful for that. If you're kind of thinking, like my family does, we do Italian a lot of the time during Christmas. So we go, at least in what I want to do when I'm up there, is I want to look for local wines there, but I also want to do something Italian. So I'm going to do, unfortunately I wasn't able to get the flank steak to do beef brujol again, but I'm doing a pork brujol. Here, it's Italian. I'm doing a Montepulciano di Abruzzo. Very Italian. If you want to do another kind of steak wine equivalent, you go with the Syrah North Coast. It's very, I believe that is, no, that's probably California. Just kidding. I thought it was French. Ha! It's Californian. Way for me to not, never mind. Now, if you're doing something like turkey or chicken, turkey you can usually do lighter reds, like a Pinot Noir. You can do possibly a Merlot, but nothing heavier than a Merlot. You can also do, if you're dealing with chicken, or even if you're dealing with fish, you can do a Chardonnay. You can do a white. I would not say a Sauvignon Blanc. That is going to be too bitter for your dinner. I would say a Chardonnay, an oak Chardonnay too. Stainless steel, yes, those are fine. Maybe you can get away with it for chicken, but Christmas, you want to do something special, go with a Chardonnay. And chill it, by the way. Chill your whites beforehand, of course. This, I find, is a very basic, rushed sort of guide. The other thing with turkey and fish, it also depends on kind of spices and, what you're aiming for, what type of fish you're using. Some reds can go with the turkey or the fish. Some are better with white. It's kind of the gray area, if you will. Most people think steak you can do, it's just exclusively reds. That's not necessarily true. If you are in a pinch, you can get an oaky Chardonnay. It's not going to be the best pairing, but in a pinch, as we rapidly approach Christmas, you can get away with an oaky Chardonnay. If you have people who are sensitive to red wine but not to white, which is a whole different conversation, and by the way, it's not sulfites for, everyone who thinks it's sulfites. Very wrong, actually, but that's a whole different video. You can get away with a Chardonnay. I would not go Sauvignon Blanc in that area, though. Maybe not even a Semillon. Essentially, this is supposed to be at least a starting guide for you to understand kind of where you're going with your wines for Christmas holiday. If you're kind of stuck, I need a wine. We're having this with dinner. I want to impress in-laws. I want to impress my, man, my woman, whoever. I want to sound educated and fancy about wine, even though I know absolutely nothing. The other thing, too, is, I was actually at my local wine store. There's actually someone there who was very knowledgeable and gave me recommendations about wine as I'm kind of looking at bottles. I'm bringing it back. I'm looking at labels. Say, here's one it's a Beaujolais. That one I distinctly remember because I've been looking at Beaujolais recently. He said, this is a Beaujolais. And so he went over the entire region, the soil, what kind of wine you can expect to taste. It was very informative, very useful. So also ask around when you're at the wine store. See if people know anything about the wine. It's entirely possible you'd be very surprised. And with that, I will leave you all adieu as I get myself to dinner because it is much later than usual and I had a lot of things to get taken care of before Christmas, even though I am literally doing Christmas for one, and that one is me. So very, very interesting how it took me all of that time to get everything done. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. I know it's a very different sort of video here, and it doesn't even go into the full details that I would really want to, but nonetheless, a starting guide to Christmas wine. Have a good evening, everyone.